When you think of top tech companies, Apple often comes to mind first. They've given us iconic products like the iMac and the iPhone, which changed everything. But while Apple's return with Steve Jobs brought incredible innovation in the early 2000s, their recent track record hasn't seen the same level of breakthroughs. Now, Apple is nearing a $3 trillion valuation, not just from selling devices, but increasingly from services tied to those devices. Let's explore why services are now driving their revenue and what this means for their approach to innovation. Apple has profoundly impacted how we live. Some of their historic innovations have defined entirely new categories. In 2001, they launched the iPod, which completely changed portable music players. Then, in 2003, they introduced the iTunes Store, revolutionizing the music industry with legal digital downloads. In 2007, Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone. The iPhone's debut was a game changer in technology and communication. It combined a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator into one device, setting a new standard. Its easy-to-use touch interface introduced pinch-to-zoom and swipe gestures, making it intuitive for users. The sleek design and top-notch materials made it a sought-after gadget and influenced how all smartphones look today. More than just a technological leap, the iPhone transformed how people interact with information, entertainment, and each other. It ushered in mobile computing and shaped modern communication and personal technology. In 2008, Apple changed mobile apps forever with the launch of the App Store. It allowed outside developers to create and share apps, sparking a whole new way of getting software. This created a lively world of third-party apps. Then, in 2010, Steve Jobs introduced his final product before he passed away, the iPad. It filled a new spot between smartphones and laptops. It wasn't until 2015, 5 years later, that Apple entered the wearable tech game with the Apple Watch. It focused on health and fitness tracking. The next year, Apple released AirPods, making listening to audio more convenient. Since then, they've updated key products and introduced others like HomePod and the M1 chip for iMacs. But few have been as groundbreaking. In 2023, Apple unveiled what might be a game changer, the Vision Pro. This AR/VR headset opens the door to the metaverse. But technologies like AR, VR, and the metaverse have struggled to catch on with everyone. Plus, with a $3,500 price tag, it's not an easy sell for everyone. It'll be interesting to see how it does when it launches on February 2nd, 2024. Since its debut in 2007, Apple has thrived on iPhone sales, driving significant growth as mobile computing gained widespread adoption in the 2000s. Over the past decade, iPhones have consistently been a top seller. Since then, there have been many updates to this iconic smartphone, and as of early 2024, we're already up to the iPhone 15. These updates have mostly built upon the original success, without major leaps. The iPhone alone has generated over $1.2 trillion in revenue for Apple, selling over 1 billion units with high profit margins. However, sales growth has slowed, and the market is now saturated, with many competitors leading in innovation. Despite plateauing device sales, Apple's iPhone revenues have remained steady. This is largely due to Apple raising prices more aggressively than before, a temporary fix rather than a long-term solution. Tim Cook understands that relying solely on iPhones for future growth isn't sustainable. The smartphone market, once burgeoning, is now mature. In recent years, Apple has shifted focus to other revenue streams to maintain growth, notably through Apple services. What are services in Apple? Well, it is all non-product sales. Consider it as the money Apple makes through offering all the other services that enable you to use your devices to the maximum and to consume the content and media that Apple creates on its own or in cooperation with third parties. Those are the services of Apple. It is the Apple universe, the environment of Apple. It is Apple's way of making sure that you remain within the Apple ecosystem so that you get locked in and can barely leave the house of Apple. The manner in which Apple has developed this means that Apple encourages a subscription-based model for different services like Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, and iCloud storage. And that is crucial for Apple, as it is for any other tech firm, because the ultimate goal of business is to have repeat customers. Recurring revenues imply that you do not begin each year with zero in revenues. Rather, you begin each year from where you left off with the loyal customers. This has a compounding effect, as each year you are adding on to the revenues in an exponential manner. People subscribe to Apple services, and this gives Apple a steady source of income, and the ecosystem that Apple has created makes it easy for users to subscribe to and manage multiple services. iCloud, Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, and many more are services that are aimed at improving the user experience and keeping the consumer within the Apple environment. The services segment of Apple's operations has expanded over the last 10 years. Apple Services in 2023 was $85 billion out of the total revenues in 2023 of $383 billion, which means that 22% of the total revenues are from services. That is a stark contrast to 2018, when services revenue as a percentage of total revenues was at a meager 15%. If one compares the growth of services revenue with the rest of the segments in Apple, the disparity is quite apparent. For the same period, services revenue has been rising at a rate of 16% annually from 2018. Although the expansion of services is beneficial to Apple's revenues and has surely helped Apple to own the corporate sphere and please Wall Street for years, it has and is still transforming the type of company that Apple is. The composition of revenues at Apple shows what kind of company it's transforming into, and more, it's not a technology company, but a services company. That is a big problem against the background of relatively low new product introduction rates, and here I'm referring to new products as opposed to updated versions of existing products. Establishing a tech ecosystem and monetizing the services you offer has been beneficial to Apple's finances up to this point, but the focus should always be on creating new products. Indeed, if you cannot offer innovation, people will simply switch, regardless of the cost of switching, due to the ecosystem that you have developed. Therefore, Apple is at a fork in the road that will determine what the business will look like in the next 10 to 20 years. Apple has innovated with the Vision Pro, but at a price of $3,500, that's not a consumer product for the masses yet. Picking a metaverse that has yet to gain traction, just like Meta, it's not guaranteed to be the hit product of the year. The success of the Vision Pro will very much depend on the ecosystem Apple is able to build around it, which Apple has been able to do around the iPod and the iPhone. At the same time, while Apple is trying to invent something new and relying on services, competitors are already approaching real innovations. Microsoft is closely trailing Apple. Microsoft became the world's most valuable company for a brief period on January 11, 2024, surpassing Apple. You can be sure that Satya Nadella will continue and build on this lead, and before you know it, Apple will be left far behind. Microsoft has made massive leaps in the areas of cloud gaming with the recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and AI with the investment in OpenAI. Maybe the success of its arch-enemy Microsoft will provide Apple with the wake-up call it needs to get back to the drawing board and start the process of developing what the average consumer will want in the future. Thanks for watching.